Well, hello, and thanks for watching another episode of ARFCOM News, your thrice weekly dose of the finest 2A propaganda. Well, FPC has just filed for summary judgment in Jensen versus ATF and Brown versus ATF. That's particularly important because they're essentially telling the court, bro, this case is such an absolute slam dunk that you should just throw out the NFA altogether without even bothering to go to trial. Pretty based. So the argument the FPC is making here is that the NFA is entirely unconstitutional because back in 1937 in US versus Sunzinski, the court upheld the NFA on the grounds that it was a tax. And if they are not collecting any revenue, zero tax, then that means it is, well, obviously not a tax, and it is simply a regulatory scheme. And a regulatory scheme involving firearms would be patently unconstitutional on its face. There is simply no excuse for it. The FPC saying you got to throw this out. And the FPC also just filed a motion to include the NRA as plaintiffs in Struck versus Platkin, which is the case revolving around New Jersey's ban on buying more than one firearm in any rolling 30-day period. So I guess if the FPC thinks the NRA is cool, maybe I was wrong about them. Just kidding. Of course, obviously, the FPC just needs the NRA's lawyers to get involved in the case. This is not at all the FPC coming around and saying that the NRA is suddenly based. But hey, it would be impossible for us to produce quality 2A propaganda without sponsors. So let's pay some bills. Today's video is sponsored by Vortex. Vortex just added a new solar-powered closed emitter version of the ST to their Defender line of micro red dots. Like the rest of the Vortex Defender line, the new enclosed ST features a constant on emitter with no flicker and shake awake, so it's always ready. It also doesn't drain the battery in daylight and has a convenient side-mounted battery. Find out more in the doobly-doo. You gentlefolk will probably remember that about 3 years ago, John Cornyn, Lindsey Graham, and several other Republican usual suspects sold us down the river and gave us the Bipartisan Gun Control Act. Among other things, one of the things that bill did was essentially eliminate private sales by setting the standard for engaged in the business to be so low as to include behaviors such as selling one gun at a loss to a close family member as being in the business. Naturally, people are afraid of going to prison over selling a single gun, so of course they'll go through dealers over it, which has more or less had a de facto ban on private sales. Texas Representative Wesley Hunt just introduced H.R. 6035 to hopefully start to begin to set some of that right again. Along with rolling back the Bipartisan Gun Control Act, this bill would also pull federal funding for any states which have red flag laws in place. And Representative Richard Hudson introduced H.R. 38, which would introduce nationwide reciprocity, forcing every state to recognize permits from every other state. That seems like something that ought to be covered under the full faith and credit clause of the United States Constitution to me, but who am I? I'm just some guy. Now, I wish I could get excited about these bills. They would be pretty cool if they passed, but I have to point out, the last time the Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, they gave us, what did they? Oh, nothing. Absolutely nothing substantive in the way of pro-gun bills were passed. So, is there any reason to expect it to be different this time around? I would love to hear what you guys think down there in the doobly-doo. So Sylvan Arms has introduced two new Whisper Pickles. The SA357 Ti is 8 inches long and is optimized for 357 Magnum and 350 Legend, and obviously it has lots of extra volume for extra performance in 9mm. The SA30MD is 10 inches long and it's designed for 30 caliber cartridges all the way up to 300 Remington Ultra Mag. Details, of course, will be available on the Sylvan Arms website, but of course YouTube hates us, so I can't tell you what the website is or how much things cost or anything, but you guys are smart and you'll figure it out. Mantis has dropped the Titan X, which is a training pistol based on the Glock 19 style frame, so it should fit your holsters and whatnot. It includes a laser for instant feedback, as well as all the doohickeys, accelerometers, and doodads, so that it can interface with a Mantis training app, just like the little doohickey that fits on the accessory rail that they made earlier. Except now it's all available in an inert pistol, so you don't even have that ooky feeling you might sometimes get when you're dry firing. Well, that was quick. Remember when I told you about the Glock V-Series and I mentioned that it probably won't be long before somebody finds a workaround and gets a switch to work with that thing to make it go to bird? Well, GD never disappoints, and there is currently a thread on the ARFCOM forum which indicates somebody may have already figured out that switcheroony thing. Now, I'm no gunographist, and I'm certainly not going to go into enough detail to get banned from YouTube for this, but glancing at the picture there, it seems like you could take any standard Temu or Wish autosear and just remove a little bit of metal from exactly the right spot, and you can probably get around those ribs on the Glock V-Series. But hey, who am I? I'm just some dude on the internet, so I would love to hear what you guys think down there in the doobly-doo. Would this switch work with the V-Series? Is there even anybody out there that has a V-Series and a switch at the same time? Would you post evidence like this on the internet of your own crimes, assuming you didn't have an SOT? Tell me below. Well, friends, thanks for watching, and if you would like to help us keep delivering you pure American propaganda at the low price of free, don't forget that it would be literally impossible for us to produce quality two-way propaganda without sponsors. So do us a solid and get yourself something nice from them. You deserve it. I love you.